Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm your host, Colin MacDonald. Today, we turn our attention to one of the most dramatic moments in Glasgow's history, an event that shook the British establishment and highlighted the growing tensions between the working class and the government. On this day, January 31st, 1919, riots erupted in Glasgow, culminating in what became known as the Battle of George Square. To understand what happened on that fateful day, we need to look at the conditions in post World War I Glasgow. The city, often called the second city of the empire, had played a crucial role in Britain's war effort. The shipyards along the Clyde, the engineering works, and the heavy industries had been pushed to their limits to supply the war machine. But with the war ending in November 1918, Glasgow's workforce faced a new reality: rising unemployment, food shortages, and severe housing problems. Tens of thousands of soldiers were returning from the trenches, expecting a better future after their sacrifices. But instead of prosperity, they found overcrowded tenements, sky high rents, and long working hours. The demand for change was growing, and the trade union movement in Glasgow was ready to take action. The immediate cause of the confrontation in George Square was the demand for a 40-hour workweek. At the time, most workers were still on a 54-hour week, and with jobs scarce, unions argued that reducing working hours would allow more people to find employment. The Clyde Workers' Committee, CWC, a group of radical trade unionists with strong socialist leanings, led the charge. Their goal was not just about working hours, it was about shifting power from employers to workers. On January 27th, 1919, tens of thousands of workers went on strike. By the 31st, up to 90,000 workers had joined, bringing Glasgow to a standstill. Strikers and their supporters gathered in George Square, the heart of the city, demanding action from the government. What happened next is still debated, but one thing is clear: violence erupted. Police, some on horseback, waded into the crowd with their batons, attempting to break up the demonstration. The protesters fought back, and soon running battles broke out between strikers and police. The riot quickly escalated with broken windows, overturned trams, and injured people on both sides. The British government, fearing a full-scale workers' uprising, perhaps even a Bolshevik-style revolution, reacted with force. Prime Minister David Lloyd George's cabinet sent tanks, soldiers, and machine guns into Glasgow. The army, including English troops, deliberately chosen because the government feared Scottish soldiers might side with the workers, was deployed to key locations including George Square and the shipyards. 6 tanks were stationed at the cattle market and the Gallowgate. For many Glaswegians, it was a shocking sight. Troops on their own streets, deployed not to defend them but to suppress them. While the government justified the move as a necessary step to maintain order, for the workers, it was a clear message that their demands would not be met through protest alone. Although the strike eventually lost momentum, it did achieve some success. Over the next few years, working hours were gradually reduced, and by 1922, a 47-hour workweek was introduced. However, the events of 1919 left a lasting scar on the city. The Battle of George Square also cemented Glasgow's reputation as Red Clydeside. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, the city remained a hotbed of socialist and trade union activity, influencing generations of political thought in Scotland. Today, when we walk through George Square, it's easy to overlook the fact that this very space was once the site of a workers' revolt that nearly brought the government to its knees. The tanks and soldiers may be long gone, but the spirit of 1919, the fight for fair work, decent housing, and workers' rights, still echoes in modern Glasgow. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Please like, subscribe, and tune in tomorrow for another enlightening episode of This Day in Scottish History. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste you back.